I was about wearing my shoes when the phone rang this time. Mercy rushed out to pick the phone. Immediately she said, "Hello." She disappeared. I was scared. We searched for her all through the night. We didn't see her. I met Peter, my husband, at the restaurant where I'd work. He came to buy food and I happened to serve him that day. After eating, I returned to pack the dishes he ate with. He had tipped me and later asked me for my number, which I gave him, even though it was against my work policy. After the day I gave him my number, we started texting and calling each other. A few weeks later, he asked me to be his girlfriend, which I had accepted. Few things led to another. After 1 year of our relationship, I realized I was pregnant for him. I told him about the pregnancy. Although I was scared, he was going to ask me to abort the pregnancy, but to my surprise, he accepted it and told me we are going to keep the baby. But my problem was that my parents won't let me have a baby in their house. I also told Peter and he told me I would stay inside his room in his father's house. I was at first mad, but Peter wasn't financially stable either. Now that I was pregnant, I could see how much he worked hard. Few months later, I started living with Peter in his father's compound. The house was a 3-room apartment, one room for his dad and his mom, and the other room for his younger sister Mercy, and one for Peter. I didn't have any problem living with them because his mom and his dad were peaceful people, even his sister. But the only problem I had with his sister was that whenever anyone calls me, whether I am there or not, she will answer the call. And answering the call wasn't the only problem, but she would in turn tell lies and tell some of the people that called me that I'm pregnant for a jobless man and living with his parents, that they shouldn't call the line again. I was mad at her and warned her severely, but she in turn told me that if I want to live in the house peacefully, I should allow her pick my calls and not complain, or else she would tell her brother that I'm cheating with him. I complained to Peter and I was surprised when he cited his sister. Mercy is not a small girl. She's about 20 years. She should know by now that she should not pick people's call. I had complained bitterly that day, but Peter said he would speak to her, which he never did. This had continued till one day my pastor had called. Mind you, he never knew that I was pregnant, and that was the reason I stopped going to church. I was at the backyard that day washing my clothes when my pastor called. Mercy as usual paid the call. My pastor had asked her to give me the phone, but Mercy went on and told him how I got pregnant and living with the boy's parents. She told him lies about me. Immediately the call ended, she brought my phone towards me, laughing. "Why are you hiding from your pastor? Why didn't you tell him you were pregnant for a jobless man and had forced the pregnancy on him?" she asked, in between laughing. I snatched the phone from my hands and realized my pastor had called. "Don't worry, I already helped you tell him that you got pregnant out of wedlock." I cried bitterly. I called my pastor back and he told me how disappointed he was, but told me to still return back to church. I wasn't hiding the fact that I was pregnant for him. I don't just wanted him to know just yet. Everyone will make a mistake. I wept and called my grandma and told her about what I have been passing through. Few weeks later, my grandma came to see me and also talk some sense into Mercy. Because I got pregnant for her brother doesn't mean she has the right to answer my calls. I and my grandma were still talking when my grandma Nokia phone rang. Before my grandma could pick her phone from the table, Mercy rushed forward and snatched the phone from my grandmother's hand and answered the phone. I was mad at her and wanted to slap her, but my grandma told me to calm because of the pregnancy. I watched as she spoke to my grandma's brother, telling him my grandma was in another man's house eating free food. I was sad throughout the day because of Mercy's behavior. My grandma left promising to come see me next time. I confronted her, this time in the presence of her parents, but to my surprise, decided that. I cried that night when Peter returned. He asked me why I was crying. I told him what happened and he just kept laughing. The next day, my grandma came again. This time, she forgot her phone and I knew she was going to look for it. I was about wearing my shoes when the phone rang this time. Mercy rushed out to pick the phone. Immediately she said, "Hello." She disappeared. I was scared. We searched for her all through the night. We didn't see her. Her mom was crying. Me too. What if we don't see her? My poor old grandma would be held responsible. The next morning at 4 a.m., the first thing we heard was someone knocking on the door. We opened it and it was Mercy on barefoot, looking like someone who has ran 24 hours non-stop. We gave her water and she drank hastily. We gave her time to rest and we later asked her what had happened. But to date, she refused to tell us what had happened, and the good news was that she since stopped taking people's call. The end.